Very interesting inverse correlation here with MULN stock versus the broader markets. And although we slam dunked today's price action with yesterday's analysis, there are several things to take into account, and we should review this now. What is up, you guys? Thank you so much for stopping by once again. This is ARCa coming at you with a MULN technicals, raw price action, and statistical thread of analysis on this happy Friday. All right, so before we get started, please make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, share the video with a friend so that you and them could consider joining our trading community in Discord called ARCab. With that said, let's go ahead and dive right into the charts. Okay, so we are looking at MULN on the hourly chart here, and yes, look at this crazy inverse correlation between the broader markets and MULN. It's almost as though we were pressuring the short positions. I'm sorry, it's almost as though we were pressuring the short positions here with the loss of their major gains. I'm talking about their ETF losses, right? So that actually caused them to increase pain on MULN, right? But let's go ahead, and that's just speculative, right? It's not the truth. But let's just go ahead and move on to the next chart and see what we have. So let me go ahead and skip the Crypstex indicators right now because there is some very important things to touch on right now. Particular to the statistical side of the analysis. Okay, so in this case, all right, so yesterday I mentioned that the 108% move that we had made to the upside was already fair enough, and we could potentially face type of pullback soon, right? So now the price action did end up going a little bit higher like we implied, and it ended up completing a move of about 122 spot 15% out of the 172. Okay, so this is I mean, I thought it was more than fair on yesterday's analysis, but this is in fact now showing a pretty good correlation. Okay, so this is I mean, this is a good ratio, you guys. I mean, there's no can't get any better than this. Other than some other statistics sometimes meet directly on it or surpass it, but this was a massive move considering the downside that MULN has been enduring for quite some time now. Okay, so let's go ahead and just review a downside thesis that I had already back tested. Okay, so in this case, if this is the implied projection to the downside, then we could be in some trouble here. Okay, so now the reason why I'm saying the downside is because I have ran a back test of volatility versus momentum in the MULN asset, particular to the 12-hour chart throughout the entire trading history of the asset itself, right? So this entire backtest was created by me by hand, so that we can see these metrics and evaluate them, right? OCD much? I don't know. You be the judge. All right, so yeah, so let's go ahead and now look at the downside thesis regarding volatility versus momentum, as the stage has already been set and the firing of the signal has already been met as well. Okay, so particular to the downside of anytime that volatility has reached or surpassed the 90% or has lived within the 90 percentile like we were just recently, I have taken note of that iterations downside thrust here like this. Okay, so I have taken note of that iteration's downside thrust, the iteration's duration, and the amount of times that volatility versus momentum have guessed the downside correctly versus incorrectly. Okay, so now let's go ahead and evaluate those metrics. These are statistical, okay? They're not certainties. Just like this right here, right? We were able to see 122% move out of the 172. That's great. Okay, so now out of a total of 21 iterations throughout the entire trading history of MULN on the 12-hour chart in particular, 9 of those were actually guessed correctly to the downside, giving us an average downside accuracy of 42.85% with an average downside pressure actually of minus 93.47% over the span of just over 24 and a half days. This is proof of work. Okay, so if we were to imply a minus 93.47 move to the downside based on momentum suggesting a downside continuation and us starting a contraction phase from critical volatility, well, let's go ahead and imply it. Let's see. What was it again? Minus 93.47, right? So let's see what we have. Yeah, we'll use this tool here. And actually, let's just see when the firing of the signal happened. So that could have essentially been, yeah, I'd say today. Wow. Yeah, today, close to the end of the trading session. Very good stuff. Okay, so that means that we could have done it from the opening of this candle here, which is at about 44. I'm sorry, 30. Let's see. The opening of this candle is, yeah, 44. 20 something, 44 30 29 something. Okay, so it's too small for me to look at, but it's okay. So yeah, let's go ahead and do it from that opening of the candle and imply a 94% move to the downside, right? So because there is something very particular that I would like for us to look at. Oh my goodness, no way. That's insane. I hope that isn't the case. Is there something negative happening within MULN stock? Is there a catalyst that's going to eventually lead this to zero? Because I'm not sure that I even want to believe this myself. Okay, so if we're implying, what was that percentage? Oh my goodness, guys, I need you to be careful if this is the case. Okay, so yeah, 93.47%. That's close enough there. So I don't know that we can put this to trust. It's suggesting 3 cents, but anything can happen in the markets, right? I'm trying to see in a macro perspective if there's any reason to take this to 3 cents, and let's just take a look here. Oh man, yeah, I don't see any reason why it would go all the way down to 3 cents, because our all-time low is about 18 cents. But again, it's just a statistical metric, and it is suggesting a downside continuation. But please don't take this all too seriously, because not all the time do these statistical metrics meet, and sometimes they get invalidated right away anyway. And the reason why I can say that is because of the RSI, and particular to the RSI in the weekly chart. As you can see, there's still aggressive upside in the weekly, meaning that over the next few weeks, we would essentially see a downside coming in and followed by a corrective move. Look at the 5-day aggressive upside as well. And the 3-day is where it starts correcting. The bi-daily is still suggesting upside, but this is very confusing because the daily is suggesting downside. So there's a lot of indecision within the stock, and I'm wondering if there is a fundamental something lingering around that's creating this type of uncertainty within the asset. And I'm talking about psychologically speaking, okay? So anyway, let's just go ahead and move down the line right here, because there are some things to touch on. So yesterday, we talked about potentially reaching this range here, followed by a sell-off, and it did happen just as expected. So I want you guys to know that there is a tiny little gap down here that we actually didn't see yesterday. And let's see. That is between 33.92 and 34.40. Okay, so this could present a short-term bounce, followed by testing the candles, the split between these two candles here at approximately 37 cents, followed by a continuation to the downside per the 12-hour suggestion of a continuation. And now we're getting a bearish cross. I'm talking about the RSI signal. Purple line is now making a bearish cross below the 14-day simple moving average, which is standard to any RSI setup, relative strength index. Okay, so yeah, so let's just look at this target here. This was another important thing to notice here, that I did say that we were going to go into that price there, but in its particular to this chart here, and I'll show you why. I usually tell you guys that I leave my gaps in play for I leave them open for future potential play. And I forgot about this one here, but I mean, I've had it here in every single video, right? But I forgot about it because it's particular to the daily charts. If we open up the daily, and any day now, there it is. Here's the gap, and here we are. We actually came up to close it. So this is why I leave the gaps in there, right? So it's really interesting that my metrics based on geometrical targets were fulfilled to the gap, and me forgetting about the gap, using it right over here. You know what I mean? So it was literally that gap in the daily. So this is something I drew just recently. It wasn't based on that gap. It was just based on, like I said, geometrical targets. So it's very interesting that the trade would take it there. So it's yet again another another way for us to consider the trade, right? So yeah, let's go ahead and open up a multi-pane here to see what kind of edge we can get for the coming trading session, starting on let's see, the immediate short-term time frame, 30 minutes. Okay, so 30-minute immediate short term, it's suggesting a continuation to the downside. Okay, I'm going to open up the diagram here for the RSI properties, as I would like for you to hone in on these 4 zones as they're located right over here on the live chart. Okay, so we are suggesting a continuation to the downside, and the 14-day moving average is essentially working as a form of guide or a resistance, if you will. Okay, so now the bi-daily chart is suggesting a downside as well, but please notice that the downside is actually a little corrective, and it looks like it's losing its downside pressure or momentum. And the 14-day moving average is suggesting downside as well. We also have a bearish cross now, and the moving average is above us, which is very bearish. Okay, so also do notice that the 6-hour is also pivoting and losing some of that momentum as well, which is indicative of what I'm talking about here, of potentially looking at a short-term bounce from this gap fill here at about 33.87, about 34 cents. So right around this area, we can potentially find a type of bounce recovery here to test either the knot 618 or the knot 786, aka our current lows, as a form of resistance before a continuation onto the downside, eventually reaching the 1.618 as a form of support, and then finding another bounce. So what I'm talking about here is a zigzag going down, okay, in price action, literally like this type of thing. Okay, so this is very important to notice. Another, if we're talking about candle analysis, which the daily is okay to look at, is not bad at all. This would be around the minimum area where I like to look at candles, but we are printing a shooting star here. An inverted hammer at the top of a trend usually indicates a potential reversal all in all. Okay, so those are actually some of those targets that I would like for us to take a look at. Please know that I'm not a financial advisor. Take whatever I do show and iterate within these videos as just a form of entertainment. Okay, I can't actually suggest for you to buy or sell any assets. Okay, please do your own DD and everything will be just fine. Okay, you guys, but with that said, I think that's pretty much it for the video. If you want to reach out to me, don't hesitate to do so. I know it's taking me a little bit of time to reply to everybody, but I will get to you as soon as humanly possible. All right, you guys, but with that said, I wish you well, a very good weekend, and I will catch you at the bell on Monday. Adios.